Hi, thank you for tuning in. This is Annette Compo, and I am with Compo Medema Real Estate Group at Keller Williams. And one of the things I want to get into today is you've probably asked yourself that question, might want to know what my house is worth, or wow, might be kind of nice to have a pool. Kids have graduated, house is too big, might want to go a little bit smaller. Had a baby, may want to go bigger. These are all questions that come up in our lives as people and families as we grow, get smaller, and life changes. So I am going to go through today, why and when should you sell your home? Everyone always asks me the question. I've been in the industry for over 3 decades, going towards 4. And it's always that number one question, when is the best time to sell? Well, the best time to sell is when you are ready to sell. I've always found that over the course of time, interviewing people and helping people through this decision-making process, especially in my state, we have seasons. People think that those seasons are attached to better times to sell, but it really kind of comes down to when is the best time for you and your family to sell. That's going to be the best time to sell your house. We know markets have come out of the housing crisis stronger than ever. Values have continued to increase. And so remember, selling your house for the most amount of money isn't always the number one goal. It's part of the goal, part of the strategy of what you're trying to accomplish. So I'm going to walk you through today some 3 things. I call them the 3 Ps, which is preparation, pricing, and professional marketing. So that way it kind of gives you some tips on your house. You're obviously going to want to partner with a real estate expert like myself and to go through these steps. Each real estate agent may handle this a little bit differently. I'm, of course, going to tell you what I do and what my competitive advantage is and what's worked over these close to 4 decades, helping homeowners just like you and your family through this process. So the first thing is you always want to give me a call. That's that first action plan, is to pick up the phone and dial 877 Annette. I'm going to come out, or someone from my team is going to come out and meet with you and walk you through the steps. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to act like we're buyers. We're going to take a tour of your house starting from where the mailbox is. Why the mailbox? Well, we know that curbside appeal continues to become the first exposure that your house has. Not only is it important in the actual picture and how the pictures are set up on the internet, because we're finding that now over 95% of all buyers are now going to the internet before they ever even step foot over a threshold of a home, through National Association of Realtors surveys. It's now even more important to make sure that that picture of your house, it's the first snapshot that they have in their mind. So we want to make sure what's your house look like? Are there flowers? Is the landscaping fresh mulch, your front door color? If you have a purple door, is purple the color that is the most neutral for all people that look at your house? Remember, we only need to have one purchaser. However, we need a lot of purchasers to find that right quality purchaser to give you the terms that you're looking for. And sale price isn't just the most important term. There are other terms in this process to getting to that end result of selling your house. So walking around your house and noticing what is the buyer going to see when they're looking outside your house. Then walking through the front door, what's the first emotion? You're going to see what you're seeing, you're going to hear, and you're going to smell. Why that's important is because what does your house smell like? A lot of times people always ask, do I use floral scents? Do I do candles? All of those items are not the best way to represent your house. The best way is just to have its natural smell. The most organic home is probably the most healthiest home for it to be the most neutralized for everyone. Sometimes people will maybe cook some banana nut bread, which always is good for your real estate agent, or chocolate chip cookies, because those are neutral smells that when people smell, they do have emotions attached to them. The second thing is sound. If you have a lot of sounds going on in your home, it distracts people from really what they're seeing when they first walk in your house. So making sure that that is all in check right after you walk over the threshold. Also, take a look at the flooring, look at the walls, take a look at how the floor plan is laid out, how your furniture is laid out. All of those items come into play because remember, this is the first time they've ever been in your home and they have to literally experience memories that they're going to be creating when they decide to purchase your home. So this is why it's so important to sometimes sellers will say, I feel like my house, I can't live in it. Well, unfortunately, when you are selling your home, there's a gray area of living in your home and selling your home. And you got to kind of come to that comfortable feeling. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever you decide what that is. However, looking at what is going to attract the most people is going to be the smartest decision. So I always suggest put things away. The less clutter, the better. They're not buying our stuff. They're only buying the floor plan, the brick and mortar that's around there. So I always make mention that when we're looking at budgets on things that need to be fixed in a home, we always look at the highest ROI, the return on your investment of what you're going to be able to put into it, as well as the budget that you may or may not have if you're thinking about selling your home. So simple things like decluttering, organizing your closets are all great tips that have very low investment but high return. And I make this joke all the time is if you come to my house, sometimes it looks like I'm ready to sell because I've gone into people's homes and saw them roll their towels in their pantry to the bathroom or the utility closet for your bathroom. And I'm like, wow, that's a really cool look. So I'd go home and do it just for my own personal use. But those types of qualities that you put the time in doesn't cost you anything, but the emotion that the buyer, or potential purchaser feels when they see that, they think of the pride of home ownership. Being organized. I know, like having all the bottles lined up. And obviously, if you went into my pantry today, it probably wouldn't look as organized as it could be. But if you're selling your house, this is a great opportunity to get the highest ROI just based off of making things look symmetrically correct, as well as just organized. I know that some people have mentioned to me, oh, I just threw it in the closet. That's the worst place that you could put stuff because they're going to open your closets. So having your closets, your clothing closets organized, especially those homes that have those walk-in closets, that's a fantastic amenity that your home has. So you want to show that amenity off, which means, do you have all the colors coordinated based off of the shirts on the right-hand side of your closet? You could. Is it necessary? Maybe not. However, the more time you invest, the higher the ROI emotion that these potential buyers are going to feel, because they're going to feel like they can live there. And if they can live there, then they begin that shift in their mindset about possibly making an offer. And so looking at what all of those types of opportunities that are out there and the steps that it's going to take to put your house on the market, it's going to be really, really important to make a list. Now, if you have some repairs in your home that you notice, we've found more and more over time that those repairs being fixed by the seller cost less than if they leave them for the buyer to either ask them to be fixed or they absorb fixing it themselves. So if it's something just simple, like I always say, make sure all the lights come on, make sure all the light bulbs have been changed, make sure that the light switch works, make sure the plates are all secured in place. Those are little things that you can do that, once again, small budget, however, big return on your investment and time. Now, bigger projects, people always say, what are the highest ROIs? Well, every year, National Association of Realtors puts out the study that shows what is the ROI on all these home improvements. And the ones that consistently have ranked over and over the years have been the mechanicals. Anything that is mechanically supporting that home has the highest ROI. So that's going to be your high efficiency furnaces, your tankless hot water tanks, brand new hot water tanks, electrical, plumbing, the roof, windows. Those are all high ROI, meaning the investment that you put into doing the upgrade will return out the highest for you. Now, there is nothing that gives you 100% on your investment. However, you can get into the 80s and 90s on your ROI based on the higher price end items, because once again, no one wants a furnace to go out, right? So that emotional feeling of knowing that there's a brand new furnace with a warranty that's been installed by a licensed professional gives that purchaser a very comforting home feeling and allows their mindset to shift into, I think I can possibly live here. I feel like I want to take the effort and make an offer on this beautiful home. And knowing that that is an option, the next biggest investment that I've seen people is usually paint on the walls or flooring underneath their feet. Knowing those types of initial investments for selling your house, it's really important. If you have carpet that's worn, paths going through, it hasn't been replaced in 10 or 15 years, this might be a great time to look at that. Now, if budgets are a little bit limited, maybe just cleaning it, having a professional come in and clean your carpeting. Also, changes the scent in your house. And it also is a little bit more cost effective than replacing the carpet. And a lot of those cleaners can do some magical stuff with stretching carpet where you get the rolls in the carpet. They can stretch the carpet back out to its original size so it's tight and looks a lot nicer. So there are alternatives to any of these things in your home that potentially should be fixed that provide a better experience for the purchaser when they walk through. But we're talking with that real estate professional in the very early stages of the question that comes up in your mind. As a coach in real estate for many years, I always tell the new agents, coming from a relationship-based mindset versus a transactional based mindset is the best way to be. So I come from very much a relationship, people by people before they ever buy a product or service has been my mantra. And with that being said, it also allows me to be more consultative. So if you're thinking about selling your home or wondering what your home is worth, having me come in on a consultative basis is very comforting, very non-committal, very low expectations, and it allows the authentic conversation to happen. And I believe that type of environment is the best environment for homeowners to make. They look for the education that they need, the options that are out there for them, and in turn, they're making better decisions because they're more educated on the process. Now, obviously, having me come in once we do your walkthrough, the next thing we're going to want to talk about is pricing. Pricing is probably what I consider one of the top things to talk about besides that walkthrough is the pricing of the home. There's a lot of different techniques that we've seen in the marketplace, especially when inventories have been so low. We've seen a lot of people go under what we consider fair market value, which drives the price up because of the demand of the lack of inventory and the amount of buyers, basic economics. We've also had strategies that have come in where they come in at fair market value, obviously based on the amenities of the home. It still organically drives up the price based on the demand that's in the market. But we're seeing kind of a little bit of a shift in the market. And you always knowing and understanding as a real estate professional myself is where is the current market for this neighborhood? So when you watch the news, you're always going to get this broad opinion across the states of where the real estate market is. But how does that really impact you in your house at 123 Main Street? Probably not a lot. What really impacts is what is going on in your neighborhood. How many houses are currently on the market? How many houses have currently gone pending? And how many of those houses have sold in the last 180 days? Each are as important in that looking at that strategy on your pricing. Homes that are currently on the market, that's going to be your competition. But they're also soon going to be the pendings, right? If they're priced right and they show right. Because houses sell when they're priced right. It's based on price and condition. It's not rocket science in this. However, to master it is the important part of the partnership that you need with someone on your team as the real estate expert. So knowing and understanding that your pendings are now the indicator as days on market is how many days did that house sit before it got an offer. That's going to give you kind of that scope of what your future looks like based on the pricing. And then your solds, those are going to change because your solds become the pendings when they close, right? They become sold comparables. And those sold comparables are very important as well because a lot of transactions, people are going to financing institutions to get a loan, and they're requiring many times an appraisal. And that appraisal is used with the comparables that have sold when an appraiser comes into your local neighborhood market. So that's why you see, you hear things on the national news. Don't allow that to influence your decision if you're thinking about what your home is worth, or is this the best time to sell? Always go into your local market, your local neighborhood to get a true indication as to what's going on. Now, we have an amazing opportunity, customers. with my database, they actually get notified every time a home hits the market, every time a home in their neighborhood sells, as well as goes pending. And it allows people, even who aren't thinking about selling, to kind of keep their thumb, or, that curiosity that we always have about our largest investment. How much is it worth, right? And so having those tools at your fingertips is really valuable. And once again, no expectations. We get you signed up pretty easily. You can opt in, opt out anytime you want to, but it kind of gives you a more factual based information about the value of your home at any point in time of the year. And then, of course, the last thing is the professional marketing. I know, being in the real estate industry as long as I've really critiqued and looked at what actually works and what doesn't work. Now, this is obviously my personal opinion. However, my metrics have been proven time and time again every time I've moved a family from one location to another in that transition, that it's about 18 qualified showings. Now, qualified showings means that people that have been pre-approved, purchasers that have gone to a lending institution or have a pre-approval letter for cash, that state very clearly that they're able to buy your home if they so choose to. And having those 18 qualified showings, it's the timeline it takes to get to those qualified showings. So how do we get 18 qualified showings? Well, the first step is what we talked about, making the home ready to sell, taking that walkthrough, making sure it's priced correctly, knowing and understanding what's going on in that market. And then, of course, using tools and utilizing those tools. One of them is very simple that we're doing today is video. Video has really evolved in the real estate industry as becoming that virtual walkthrough where people can walk through homes. And you've seen the agents walk through homes on the internet, if it's Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, or any of the ways, the platforms that people use. But that video has worked really important for people to kind of get a feel of what the house is, and allows that metric that I was telling you about of how many showings it takes to get a bona fide offer. It allows less showings and more concentration on the focused purchasers that are actually interested in your home. Pictures are as important as video. Pictures of being able to sequentially walk them through your home from the front door, from the actual mailbox to the front door, to over the threshold and into what we consider the most important parts of your home, which of course 9 times out of 10 is the actual floor plan, but it's also the kitchens and bathrooms, right? Is the basement finished? Those types of questions are asked because the purchasers have made what we consider a list of things that they want, and deal breakers. Deal breakers are things that they will not buy a house unless it has it in there. So it's finished bathrooms, the master bath, the master bedroom on the main level, a fenced-in yard. Those are sometimes, breakers in a deal that they won't even come and see the home unless they're there on the pictures or they see them, experience them on the video. Also understanding where the market is at and what agents are selling in certain concentrations. When I look at a home, I will literally see the metrics on what agents are showing homes, how many showings have been requested in that neighborhood, in that price range, in that area, because those are the potential purchasers for my clients. And understanding that becomes part of that professional marketing piece and the strategy that we put in place. We always like to say we're 7 days out from your house going live. 7 days means there's all these steps that needs to take behind the scenes that the team that I work with is working on. If it's everything from how the pictures are organized, to how the video is captured, to the pre-title work that's done, to how the buyer is looking at the home on the internet, to the social media platforms and how we're advertising it, to driving it through literally a 7th level open house. And I say 7th level because that's a process and system I have in place of checklist of how we get prepared to do an open house if your house exhibits that type of an opportunity. So all of these things are important, and to make sure they all happen, checklists are critical in being an expert in this industry. So when you're out there looking at real estate agents to hire, make sure that you're asking these questions. So listening to this video today, I hope you've had your notepad out and jotted down some really important tips, but understand that preparation, pricing, and professional marketing are your 3 pillars. So congratulations if you decided to answer any of those questions. You can always reach out to me at 877-ANNETTE. I'm sure there'll be a link in this video or in the bio based on the platform. I'd love to chat with you about the value of your home, or obviously reach out to any real estate professional and ask the correct questions. Thanks so much and have a great day.